Help us level the playing field. Sign the parliamentary petition today to fuel the growth and fund the game.
Okay, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Lakeside Stadium this evening.
Good evening and welcome to Lakeside Stadium. The final game of the first half of the 2026 NPL Men's Victoria season is here. It's South Melbourne against Caroline Springs George Cross. And as Roman Reigns' theme song rings around the stadium here, it's a much weakened South Melbourne that are welcoming Georgies today because, of course, they are in the thick of their OFC Pro League duties. So the whole senior squad are watching this on the other side of the Tasman as they prepare for Vanuatu United on Wednesday. So it's an opportunity for the kids to put out their best form in a game that they are going in as massive, massive underdogs, and a big chance for Georgies to keep themselves right in the mix for the top six. My name is Nick Tabano, and I'm joined here by Oscar Rutherford for all the action. Oscar, we're going to see the kids again in action for South Melbourne, but unlike last week, there are even more players out, with the likes of Andres Kapoulis, Luca Durso, and goalkeeper Anton Van Riet all missing today through injury.
Well, that's right, Nick. I mean, I'm not sure how much of a difference that makes to South Melbourne's prospects tonight. Obviously, having some more experienced heads or some players with more pedigree at this level would have helped a bit, but this South Melbourne are going to be massive underdogs coming into tonight in any case. It's really exciting, I think, though, to have two, of course, historic giants of Victorian football going head-to-head. First competitive meeting in over a decade. So really looking forward to just the build-up towards the South Melbourne George Cross game, which we haven't seen for a long time.
Absolutely, and when these two teams meet again, it'll be in the final round of the season when South Melbourne be hoping to have the full complement of players available for that one. And both teams hoping to play finals footy this season. South Melbourne have made, as mentioned, 4 changes to that starting lineup that went down against Heidelberg. No Luca Durso, no Andres Kapoulis, no Antoine Van Riet, and no Luca Trubiano. So it presents an opportunity for Jaden Smerling to be their 5th starting goalkeeper in all competitions this season. And he's joined in the starting lineup by Ricardo Confunda, Noah Grieve, and as well Joseph Pisano. And George Cross, meanwhile, making a couple changes of their own. Yagub Mustafa into the starting lineup along with Ross Vasiliadis. Out goes Daniel Cutler and Ottman Benedou. As we get things underway, South Melbourne going from right to left in their traditional blue, and George Cross in red and white going from left to right. And immediately it's South Melbourne looking to get forward here through the youngster Grieve. Short to Di Lorenzo, ball through towards Campbell Dovison, who is one of the few players out there with any senior experience. Him and Thierry Papadimitriou and George Saristavros have seen the most of the action amongst these youngsters today, Oscar. But, you know, when you hear the mantra of play the kids, this is taking play the kids to the next level. But really, South Melbourne have no other choice.
Well, that's right, Nick. It does present a slightly awkward predicament, I think, for Georgies as well coming into this game. I mean, it's such a changed 11, so many players who, I mean, most of the players on the pitch would never have played against, heard of, those kinds of things. So not really knowing what to expect, but it's still South Melbourne at Lakeside, and you can never take that for granted.
Absolutely, and it's a big opportunity for George Cross to get back on the winners list. Of course, they won in the Cup last week against Williamstown, had to do it the hard way, coming from behind in that match to get the result. Here's Musa Nagic looking to get forward down the right, and getting across to clear that one away is, I believe that was Confunda coming across and goes out of bounds. So an opportunity here now for the long throw. It is Musa Nagic who is sizing this one up. Launches that one into the box. And it's flicked towards the back and nodded towards goal. And it's into the back of the net. And within a matter of seconds, George Cross are in the lead. And it's Morgan Filer yet again with another goal this season from centre-back. On the score sheet last week against
goal for
and
Caroline
on the score
Springs,
sheet within
George
minutes.
Cross.
And, well, he made sure to recreate Charlie Leach's celebration as well, heading over to the inflatable bottle. He enjoyed that one. And, well, immediately South Melbourne's resistance is broken.
Well, a nightmare start, that one, Nick, for South. Such a young team. They've, of course, got such a long time to get back into this game, but we'll see how they respond to that early setback, of course. Such an exciting opportunity for so many of these young players, but to be on the back foot early as they are, really putting them up against it. So we'll learn a little bit about, I think, a number of the players on the pitch tonight. Certainly the South Melbourne coaching staff will. But for George Cross, I mean, let's remember, this is a team that hasn't found winning easy in the NPL over the last couple of months. So that's an ideal start, of course. But they'll still want more, you'd think. They'll need something to give them a little bit more of that confidence and stability than just the one goal.
Absolutely, and that is exactly the start the doctor ordered for George Cross, not so much for South Melbourne. Morgan Filer, who has been busy on the goal scoring front this season, as well scored against Altona Magic this season, a late equaliser in that game. And Georgies, who found the last few weeks tough going in the league and really could do with 3 points today, would get them right back in the mix with those sides looking to play finals footy, particularly with Preston dropping points against Altona. Another chance here for Georgies again. In behind and coming off his line is Smirling, who had to make the save. And right now, South Melbourne right up against it in the early going. And as you mentioned, Oscar, this is the first meeting between the two teams in the league since 2010, but the first meeting in all competitions since 2014. In fact, in that game in 2010, South Melbourne actually relegated George Cross, and it took them until now to get back to the top tier. So that's how long it's been. It was a 4-0 win at Knight Stadium for South Melbourne, and George Cross haven't beaten South Melbourne since 2007.
That's exactly where I was about to go next, Nick. That win for George Cross was at this venue, of course, so almost 2 decades since George Cross have beaten South Melbourne in any competitive fixture, but I mean, they're not going to get many better looks at it than what they have tonight, and of course the early goal to go with that. You see, there's still plenty of intensity with how George Cross are playing. They haven't let that early goal diminish the enthusiasm with which they're playing, which is exciting to watch, and I think they'll be looking to really pin back their hosts in the first few minutes of this game.
I sense that this is going to be a little bit of the story of the game. Georgie's sitting on the ball and basically daring South Melbourne to come at them. Di Lorenzo clears it away. It's out there for a throw-in. So many young faces in this team for South Melbourne. Campbell Dovison leading the line today alongside Confunda, joined by the likes of Papa Dimitriou, Sarah Stavros, Jake Brown, Joseph Pisano, Noah Grieve, both Angelatoses, Jerry and Angus, and even more new faces on the bench today with Luca Durso, Skopoulos missing, as well as Van Riet. And Durso and Skopoulos are two of the players who have seen quite a bit of senior action over the last couple of years. So they're really going deep into the depth chart tonight as Justin Spiteri to get things moving again. Lofts looking to play it through. Getting back to clear that one away was Pisano, and he wins a throw-in. So little win there for South Melbourne. Of course, this is the last of... This could be potentially the last game when they'll have these wholesale changes, depending on what happens on Wednesday, Oscar, against Vanuatu, because if they win that game, they play the OFC Pro League final on Sunday against Auckland or South Island United. But if they lose that, well, they'll be back on the plane, you'd think, back to Melbourne, and there's every chance that next Monday against Avondale, a big game that is, that we could see a full complement of some of those senior players back. So if it's not against Avondale, it will certainly be the following week against Hume. Musa Danagic loading up the long throw, but instead to go short to Tyler James. Musa Danagic back in a crossing position, and he whips it into the box. It's a dangerous one, and Smirling came off his line to punch that one away.
Well, I'm sure all of those rivals at the top of the NPL Victoria ladder will certainly be hoping that George Cross do them a favour and do as much damage to South Melbourne as possible, before, as you say, South do bring back in the big guns for regular league fixtures. The lose tonight would be 6 points off the top, South, so all things considered, done a pretty good job to stay competitive.
Well, good ball in there from Dib, and Smirling again off his line. Incredible that this is their 5th goalkeeper, Oscar. 5th that has started a game in all competitions. Javi Lopez, Ilya Shalamanov-Trenkov and Jake Charleston have all seen action between all the different competitions they've played in. Of course, they've played in Doherty Cup too, and we saw Van Riet played 2 games already this season, and now Smirling getting his chance after a few appearances on the bench.
When you consider that just a couple of weeks ago South Melbourne was top of the league as well, so that was really the outlier, the super impressive effort for South Melbourne to make use of their squad in the way that they did and remain as competitive as they did across all the fronts. It started to show some cracks in the last few weeks, but that's of course with the ramping up in the intensity of the OFC Pro League, and still find themselves in a decent position heading into the second half of the season.
Good ball from Mustafa. Muzzy in behind, and Smirling off his line did very well. And after a bit of a nervous start, Smirling has started to build himself into this contest. He'd be feeling a lot better after making a few saves now, after seeing one go past him early doors. I mean, Oscar, you spoke about it. The onus is on Georgies tonight, because as much as they are playing a very youthful South Melbourne team, you still got to get the job done. You still got to get the points on the board, and this presents a massive opportunity for them. It's already Vasiliadis. So Mr. Nagic getting down that left-hand side. It's even Marzi have swapped wings in the last few moments and couldn't control it. But they've got to win this game, simply. You can only play who's in front of you, and this is a game that, you know, despite the odds that are against South Melbourne, it could easily still be one of those classic trap games, and you want to kill it off early and put yourself in a position to come away with the 3 points unblemished.
Yeah, and haven't got a league win since back in March, Georgie. So it's been a long time between drinks. You mentioned still going strong in the Doherty Cup, so it's not as if they've been totally without that taste of victory for the last little while. But yeah, I mean, interesting to see how South Melbourne were going to approach this game. They haven't shown a great deal of interest in holding on to the ball up to this point. Pretty content to just get the ball as far forward as possible, as quickly as possible, which continues to place that onus on George Cross and enable South to retain some of their shape out without the ball. But of course, just means a lot of running and side-to-side work for South Melbourne over the next 90 minutes.
George Cross have a very short turnaround into playing Bentley Greens and then Preston next Wednesday in the Cup. So this also is a game, if they can kill this one off early, perhaps a chance for them as well to rest up some bodies, as Confunda looking to play it through. And the run there was from Sarastavros. Already has a goal to his name this season against Green Gully. And just a little warning sign there from South Melbourne. Still very early in this game, and we've seen strange things happen before. Good play there from Dib, looking to play it through towards Mustafa. Off his line comes Smirling, and he puts that one out into touch. So really those fixtures piling up for George Cross as a result of that cup run, as you mentioned, Oscar, and away against Preston. And the winner of that game, not only through to the Doherty Cup semi-finals, through to the national stages of the Australia Cup, which presents a really exciting opportunity for both Preston and Georgies. Ball launched into the box, and South Melbourne can now clear. It's going to be coming straight back. James out towards Marzi. That was well worked there, and throw in one there. That's why Noah Green? No. It's Joseph Pisano. Apologies for that one. Just a mix of the 3s and the 8s.
No, you played it off coolly, Nick. No one noticed. I have already noticed in the first 10 minutes of this game a number of shouts and groans, consternation from the South Melbourne technical area. I'm not sure how much it is the plan for South Melbourne to have spent as little time with the ball as we've seen in the first 11 minutes. Maybe some early jitters and nerves from some of the young players and feeling the pressure of senior football. For South, as you mentioned, that chance that they had a couple minutes ago, the first little sign of life for South Melbourne that suggests we might actually get a bit of a contest this evening.
Angus Angelatos wins it back. Confunda. Opportunity here for South Melbourne, and you get a second bite of the cherry here, Confunda. He has a go from range and just hesitated for a second and allowed Tyler James to get across. And this is a lot better here from the home side. Just noticing as well, has been a late change in numbers as well to the team sheet as well for South Melbourne. Pisano with the throw-in, short to Confunda. Well played there from Grieve, plays it into the box. Dovison looking to make something happen. Well played there from Dib, getting across and can clear it away. And a foul not called there from the referee, so South Melbourne can now recycle possession. Nice little interplay here in the middle of the park, and Angelatos with switching ball. Spiteri gets across. Marzi. Pisano. Grieve was out for a throw-in. So a bit of a lull here in the game. George Cross still with their noses in front, courtesy of that Morgan Filer opener. Strong start here for the visitors, but last couple of minutes has been a bit better here from this youthful South Melbourne team. Here's Dovison looking to play it through and calls for a handball. And the referee waves that one away. Dib. Marzi has been in and amongst the goal scorers in recent weeks. Dib, Mustafa, lovely bit of interplay there from the visitors. Musa Danagic skips past his man in Sarastavros. Musa Danagic looking to go himself. Cross takes his deflection into the box, and it's tapped home by Leo Marzi. And it's 2-0 to Caroline Springs. George Cross inside the opening 14 minutes. Marzi makes it 6 for the season.
For Caroline Springs, George Cross.
And Leo Marzi continues his brilliant run of form. And, well, after that little bit of better play there from South Melbourne, just some lovely work in the middle of the park to set one up. And Marzi, easy as you like to tap home.
Yeah, that's why it really hurts for South, because they just had really their best 5-minute spell of the game. You started to really sense their competitiveness starting to rise in the general play. So a little bit of sloppy defending and George Cross taking advantage. Leo Marzi has been the most prolific scorer for George Cross this season. He's been super dangerous across the course of the campaign, and I think he'll look at tonight as a really good opportunity to add to his goal tally, and already having that one goal, putting George Cross in a really commanding position early in this one.
Well, this is shaping up as potentially a long night for these South Melbourne youngsters. And we have seen the youngsters out there already this season. A 3-0 loss against Oakley, 4-0 against Heidelberg. So really, we're thrown in against the lines then in both of those games. Sutsitas with a long ball. Marzi looks to nod it on. Bounces all the way back. So it looks like the case of mistaken identity may have been solved, but Jake Brown potentially in the heart of defence. A bit of a last-minute number change. Confunda's been busy early doors for South Melbourne. Angelatos. Help it back to Papadimitriou, and now out to Smirling. Strong touch there from Sarastavros. Jerry Angelatos now to take the throw. Dovison. Plenty of big goals to his name. It seems like he's got a knack of scoring on the big stage. Scored a double in that Doherty Cup final last year, including the winner in that incredible 2-1 victory against Heidelberg, and then scored again against Preston this year as well. So, player that certainly has a knack of scoring big goals. As Papadimitriou looking to step forward from defence. Strong challenge. Pisano. Mustafa getting back and cleared away by Spiteri. Sent back first time there from Angelatos. No nonsense with that clearance.
Yeah, look, Dick, when you come out with such a young team, of course, so much unpredictability, and that can, of course, go either way. And I think, sometimes we've seen when the kids get played that there can be a real energy, and it can be really difficult for the more fancied team to settle into the game because they're just being hunted down every moment. I think, unfortunately for South, what we've seen in the first 15 minutes or so of this game is more of the nerves afflicting South themselves and not quite being comfortable on the ball, and that's really played into George Cross's hand. Georges have done a fantastic job to take advantage of that and get a couple of early goals, which I think would dissuade any nerves for Eric Vasiliadis and his team. Right now they're in a really strong position, and South have a lot of work to do, and I think they'll just want to find a way to be more competitive in the general play, just give themselves some looks in to take something home from tonight, even if the result doesn't end up going their way.
It was a strong challenge in the middle of the park there from James on Noah Grieve. Dib sends it long. Brown with a touch. Oh, looked like a bit of a nervous one there for Jake Brown. Perhaps Bit of an optical illusion as the ball's flicked through. Chance now for the running Grieve, and Tsitsipas again getting back all that class and experience from the Georgies centre half, able to clear it away. Brown winning the header. Confunda and his teammate there having a moment of confusion. Dovison trying the pirouette around Michael Tsitsipas and turns it over. Angelados shut down by the former South Melbourne man there in Mustafa, and he turns it over. Confunda. Opportunity here now for Hellas. Ball fed out wide from Di Lorenzo. Shot on goal there, and it's not a bad attempt. We'll take a deflection on the way through, it did. It was Campbell Dovison who had the attempt. And while South Melbourne get a corner, so despite being 2 behind, they've now got a potential opportunity to get themselves back in this one.
Yeah, and a warm round of applause from the home support as well. They're understanding the circumstances in which this game is being played. South Melbourne, they have shown that they have some potency going forward. They've won the ball back high up and caused a little bit of a scramble at the back for Georgies.
Ball in from Di Lorenzo into a dangerous position. Brown was closing. It's nodded away there from James. Oh, heavy touch there, almost played Di Lorenzo into trouble. In fact, it did. And it's out for a throw in. Nick Tibbs' protests answered. I mean, Oscar, how do you, I guess, summarise this first few months of this season for South Melbourne? They've played more football than basically any team in this, you could argue, in the country in the calendar year, with the amount of football they've had to play between all the different competitions. In fact, they've really been going non-stop since the start of last season with their success in the Australian Championship, their success in the Doherty Cup, playing in the Australia Cup last year as well, and now, of course, the OFC Pro League. But when you see that they're going to be 5th going into the halfway point of the season, despite barely having a chance to really string together consistent minutes with this, their best 11 in the league, I think it's all ticks around for South Melbourne.
Yeah, well, I'm inclined to agree with you, Nick. I mean, obviously having let some things slip in the last month or so, and they've had to make some compromises, the Doherty Cup being the most obvious one.
Oh, good ball from Papadimitriou, and Confunda has a chance! Oh, it's just wide of the mark. And while Ricardo Confunda's looked like South Melbourne's most dangerous player, and he almost caught the Georgies defence napping there, Siciliano off his line. It came off the back initially there of Confunda, but then did well to contort his body. And on the second bite of the cherry, just put that one wide.
Yeah, a bit of good fortune for South Melbourne with the ball bouncing off the back of Confunda, and as you say, did well to readjust his body and get the shot away. South Melbourne are certainly not just lying down in this game despite the early 2 goals.
Very audacious attempt there from Mustanagic and slipped on the way through. But Oscar, just going back to your previous point about this first half of the season, I mean, how do you assess it?
Obviously, compromises have had to be made. That's in the form of the Doherty Cup and in more recent weeks in league form. But as you say, all things considered, South Melbourne, I think, if you'd offered them this kind of position at the start of the campaign, I think they would have very much taken it. I think Sinisa Kahadzic would have been comfortable with it, right in the mix for finals still, of course. Still going in the OFC Pro League, of course. A lot of the, I guess, review of these first few months will depend on how they go for those final, well, for South Melbourne's perspective, hopefully a couple of games in that competition, because, of course, to be knocked out at the semi-final stage would feel like a bit of a missed opportunity on all fronts. But if they do, for example, go in and at least make a final and potentially win it, in really unprecedented circumstances, you'd have to give South Melbourne a healthy pass grade for how they've performed in the first few months.
More than just the pass grade if they're
so.
coming home from New Zealand with a trophy in tow.
Absolutely.
But I think, all things considered, just to keep themselves in the mix at the halfway point and then really attack the second half of the year with the window opening in June and a chance to get back to playing every 7 days as well. Just get back to having a little bit of rest. And the other sort of wrinkle to it that has compounded this start to the season as well has been the rain-affected games that they've had in the OFC Pro League that have caused games to be delayed. So they've had to play games later and later in the hub, and meant that they've had to have games more condensed, and everything has really compounded as time has gone on. So to be in this position right now, they would be very, very pleased. And you spoke about the Doherty Cup being the compromise. The beauty is they're still in the Australia Cup national stages because of winning the Australian Championship. So yes, they won't go for 3 Doherty Cup crowns in a row this season, but they'll still be in the Australia Cup, so at least they get a good little prize to come out of there. What comes out of competing in the Doherty Cup, of course, and are going on the Doherty Cup run. So they'll be very pleased with how things are going. I think it'll be one of those things of they'll be sending a big warning sign to the rest of the competition when they get all those players back for the second half of the year, looking to finish the season strongly. Angelatos plays it through. So Stavros here in a crossing position. Not a bad ball in. Filer clears it away. Opportunity there on the second ball, but it's cleared. Brown.
Yeah, I mean, if South Melbourne lose tonight, as they look like they will do, if they don't take any points from this game, they're what? A point behind Avondale, 3 behind Heidelberg. I mean, it's a perfectly acceptable position to be in. South Melbourne are in this position with a full-strength squad for the whole season. You'd go, well, it hasn't been great, but it's a perfectly reasonable first 13 games.
I think everyone is expecting that this second half of the year, we're really going to see them finish strongly and with a wet sail. Have beaten the likes of the Preston Lions this season. They beat Avondale when they had a full-strength side as well. To have to play Oakley and Heidelberg with their 23s, and against Hume with a severely weakened team as well. But perhaps the one blemish is that loss against Melbourne City that you called, Oscar, when they did have a full-strength team before this Auckland hub, where that was one of the games that they really would have liked just a little bit more out of going into that Auckland hub to put them in an even better position inside the top 6 before they went on their merry way across the Tasman. And an opportunity here now for Di Lorenzo. Plays it in towards the box, and a nervous moment at the back there again for Georgies. And, well, I'll tell you what, Oscar, they're not dying wondering today, these South Melbourne juniors.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you mentioned that game against Melbourne City a couple of weeks ago where they had a lot more of the first-team players, but I think that was a case where we saw the effects of competing on those multiple fronts. Even if they're running out and taking part in a game, they're not with the level of zeal that you might usually expect from a competitive high-level game of football, and that's the benefit of being able to play the kids on a night like tonight. And we're seeing that South Melbourne are certainly not lacking for energy and enthusiasm with the runs that they're making and the balls into the box, and that's what's causing Georgies as much trouble as anything, and I think is giving them as good a crack, or a comparable crack to what they would have if they had their first-team players out there at 50%.
Well, a long throw opportunity here. Ricardo Confunda will be sizing this one up. Seen plenty of these long throws throughout the years here at this venue from Max Mikola. Funda's ball falls a little bit short. And now Tyler James can get things going here for Georgies. Had a bit of an interesting start to this season, Oscar. I mean, they've been very hard to beat, particularly in the early months of the season. They were starting very strongly, but perhaps in the last few weeks, teams have started to scope them out a little bit, and the fixture as well. They've had a lot of tougher games against the likes of Heidelberg and Hume and Avondale. But I think regardless, if you set the start of the season to coach Eric Vasiliadis, that you'd be still in the mix well and truly for finals footy at the halfway point of the season. He'd be very, very pleased with that.
Yeah, and I think you're right to point out that the last month, 6 weeks, is more a reflection of the quality of opposition they've come up against. Games against Heidelberg, Avondale, Hume, teams right at the upper echelon of the NPL men's ladder. They started the season really strongly. I think that they probably, they got that little head start because they had a kind of fixture, and now that's corrected itself somewhat. But as you say, I think it's been a really serviceable opening couple months back in the top flight, still in the cup. I think that if Georgies at the start of the campaign were scoping out their ambitions, and a solid mid-table finish with a good cup run, I think would go down fairly well.
Absolutely, and solidifying their place back in the top tier now, and then perhaps in the long run, maybe look to try and really kick on and be a team that can contend in that top echelon of the table. This is a proud club, a very historic club in Victoria that would be hoping to be contending for silverware again, and by all means, they're still in with a chance, of course, through both the league and the cup. But as mentioned, Oscar, the last few weeks have been tough going for them in the league. But with how tight things are really in that mix for finals football, they would give themselves every chance to maybe, just maybe, be able to sneak into the top 6. And as we saw last year, you get into the 6, anything can happen. Marzi plays it in board there to Lofts. Challenge from Angelatos. Confunda. That's a lovely ball through. And it's opened up the door here for Di Lorenzo. He has a go. It's deflected. And Siciliano's there to make the save. And I'll tell you what, Oscar, Ricardo Confunda is having a massive impact in the early going of this game. He's really, really standing out.
Not just with his own efforts on goal, but setting up teammates as well. I mean, how perfectly weighted was that pass and timed as well to set away a teammate. It is one of the really exciting things when we get to see new faces, new players out on the pitch, on the big stages. We get to just see these little flashes of brilliance and what the future holds. And as you say, Ricardo Confunda, he's had an excellent first half hour in this game.
The beauty is that if these players are ever called upon at some point throughout the season when all the senior heads are back, they've had this little bit of experience as well playing in these big fixtures as Dovison plays it over the top. Chance now here for South Melbourne, and the Sarastavros' cross that ricochets back off him, and it's out for a goal kick. Jake Brown was lumbering up from the back, going on an adventure. I mean, why not? Why not throw yourself forward and try and get yourself on the end of a cross into the area? But
yeah, well, the why not, Nick, is because there were two noises as the cross came in, deflected back off the South Melbourne player.
Absolutely. I meant why not in the initial attempt there, Oscar, but nonetheless, we'll agree to disagree. So, Georgie's looking to build up from the back. Siciliano. Long ball forward towards Mustafa. Contest there with Brown. Great work there from Jerry Angelados. Over to his brother Angus. Lovely flick through. That's some lovely work between Grieve and Angelados. So Grieve is still going. And just a heavy touch there, and it's out of bounds and out for a throw-in. And good little spell here from South Melbourne. The midfielders are really starting to get to work for South Melbourne in the last few minutes as well, and put the pressure on Georgies.
I don't want to go too hard on the sell, Nick, but I mean, even though Georgies are 2-0 up after half hour, which is precisely what they would have planned out and how they would have wanted it to go, you're seeing the bits of discomfort and awkwardness. This is the team whose success has been built on being really solid and hard to break down, but that's not what it's looked like in this first half hour, because Georgies are being forced to play a different game than what they used to. They have more of the onus. They're away at Lakeside and yet having to have all the ball, and that's creating opportunities for South Melbourne on the break.
Ball into the area from Marzi Brown, and it just came off the outside of the foot. Confunda now looks to send it long, but had no one in support. Di Lorenzo was off short, but that just bounces all the way through there to Siciliano. Again, just a little moment there for South Melbourne. Marzi. One there from Thierry Papadimitriou. Flicked on by Angus Angelados. James switching ball. Mr. Danagic inboard. Vasiliadis here with possession. Plays it along the deck. Jerry Angelados gets across. Vasiliadis wins it back. Here's Mr. Danagic. Whips it into the box, and good claim there from Smirling. Mustafa was waiting at the back stick, and now a chance for Grieve to push back the other way. Dovison making the run, but a bit too much on that one. It's going to bounce all the way through to Siciliano.
I don't know about you, Nick, but when we had a goal after 1 or 2 minutes in this game, I was a bit worried that would lead to a bit of a dull contest, maybe taking a bit of the spirit out of South Melbourne. Georgies just confidently stroll their way towards victory, but it's really led to a much more maybe exciting end-to-end contest than we may have otherwise gotten, because it's allowed South Melbourne to release the shackles a bit and just have a crack in a way that they maybe weren't doing as much in the first few minutes when there were the nerves and the desire to keep their shape out of possession. And similarly, it puts Georgies in an awkward position. And credit to the way that George Cross are playing this, and they're continuing to throw things at South Melbourne. They're not getting overly concerned about conceding goals. They know that if they keep creating opportunities, there are vulnerabilities in the South Melbourne backline, and that's probably their best route to winning this game, isn't by clinging on to a 2-0 scoreline, but by adding 3 or 4 to the tally.
Absolutely, and nervous moment from Siciliano, and came off the outside of the foot and out for a throw-in, but and goal difference as well comes into it for this season, Oscar. This is a good chance for them to perhaps get a big win and really build on that after a few losses as well. Never know what it could come down to on the final day, which, of course, if they do end up on those equal points with the teams around them, want to make sure they've got a few extra goals in tow as Lofts Plays it out wide. Strong challenge from Jerry Angelatos. James back towards Luke Lofts. Good touch there from the Englishman. And back to Vasiliades. Good to see Luke Lofts in NPL Victoria this season. First half season, the top flight. We've seen him in VPL 1 really tear things up for quite some time. A two-time Golden Boot winner down there with both Bulleen and Georgies. And was last year the VPL 1 Players Player of the Year too.
I know, Nick, you're the #1 season ticket holder.
Oh, it's a nervous moment at the back there. Sorry, Oscar, but a chance for Musa Danagic to get in behind, but Smerling got there to clear it away.
No, you're all good. I was just pointing out that we know that you're the #1 ticket holder in the Luke Lofts fan club and rattling off his achievements as you've just done. But yeah, I do agree that it has been great to see him at this level and see what he can do, his kind of laconic style and the technical ability that he brings. He and Leo Marzi doing a lot of the attacking heavy lifting for Georgie, so a chance tonight to maybe spread around the goals.
Long ball into the area. Oh, a nervous clearance there, but a chance now for South back the other way. Well played there from Noah Greaves. Still going. Good work there from the former Western United youngster, but it came off the outside of the foot. Did very well to take it upon himself and just go for a little bit of a run, but the pass there just lacking.
Yeah, look, the end product wasn't there, but that was well done by Noah Greaves, because we've seen the last couple of times South have had a break. They've just wanted to send the ball forward as quickly as possible, and there's been no real threat that's eventuated from that. That time, of course, again, the pass didn't pan out how South would have liked, but they had the 4 players streaming forward, and they looked more likely to score when they were a little bit more patient and sensible with how they were using the ball.
You have to wonder, I mean, this might sound like a silly question if you're looking at this scoreboard and you don't really know the context of this game.
Wouldn't put it past
plays out there, but which of the two coaches would be happier going into the break? I mean, I think you'd be happy if you're Georgies. You're 2-0 up. You're in a comfortable position here. But if you're South Melbourne, you're the coaching staff today, I think you'd be still kind of pleased with what you have seen from the opening 35. Don't know if it'd be, necessarily more pleased than Eric Vasiliadis and co, but I think that they'd be perhaps quite content with this in the early 35 minutes or 45 once we get there. Dovison, good speed down the right-hand side and tugging the shirt from Zutsidas, but Dovison's unfazed. He's still going here, Campbell Dovison. Cuts it back inboard. Then past Grieve, comes out to Confunda. Looking to take it upon himself. Skips past one, shoots, that's off the post. Oh, Ricardo Confunda. Well, he's having some half. And it's going to be a throw in there to South Melbourne. And, well, you wouldn't even know this is his first league start. But if there's going to be someone for South Melbourne that looks the most likely to perhaps throw a cat amongst the pigeons, it's Ricardo Confunda in the early going. That was brilliant.
Ricardo is Confunda fighting, Nick. He's been unbelievable in this first half an hour. Really been the standout. I mean, to go back to your original question, of course Eric Vasiliadis will still be the happier of the two coaches if we go in to half-time at 2-0. And for South Melbourne, I think the emotion will maybe be a little bit more of a frustration because they've shown a lot of positivity in this first half. So to have those 2 goals conceded has just made their chances of getting anything from this game so slim despite how much they're showing.
I think that really just caught everyone off guard there. Confunda just slamming that right against the woodwork. It would have taken something special to beat Siciliano at his near post, but not a bad attempt whatsoever. And, well, that's just a little bit of a warning shot fired that South Melbourne are not going to go dying wondering today. And, well, despite the 2-0 lead, this game is still far from over. But Georgians would love a third before the break to really build on this early deficit for South Melbourne. Musa Danagic, long ball into the box. And it's cleared away and out for another throw-in.
Just on that Ricardo Confunda chance, it wasn't just the strike, which was, of course, lethal, but also the first touch to get past the defender and the composure on the ball was really a joy to watch, and that's what created the space for that shot that on another night may have just been half an inch to the right and snuck into that top corner.
Closing in on half-time here. George Cross, 2 goals to the good. Morgan Filer and Leo Marzi with the 2 goals already here for the visitors. Of course, South Melbourne, they're in action on Wednesday at Go Media Stadium against Vanuatu United. Game kicking off around lunchtime here in Melbourne as well. So if you're out on your lunch break as well, or just pop it on in the office, some great midday viewing to see if they can progress to the OFC Pro League final. That, of course, on FIFA Plus. And they'll face the winner of Auckland v South Island United in the final on Sunday, if they get the job done against Vanuatu, of course, who progressed to the semi with a dramatic win over Bulla yesterday. Lovely work there from Di Lorenzo. Dib getting back and winning it back, and Lofts, good touch. Oh, great skill there from the Englishman. That was beautiful. Musa Danagic charging forward down the right-hand side. Marzi and Mustafa in support. Lofts is free in the middle, and he goes back there to Justin Spiteri. That final on Sunday being played at Eden Park. It's really a super weekend to be a football fan in Auckland this weekend. A-League Grand Final on Saturday, and then LFC Pro League Final on Sunday. Long-range effort! And it's just wide of the mark. Leo Marzi. Oh, so close to adding a second. And this man is in some form at the moment. He's playing with plenty of confidence, and he almost had a second tonight.
That looked like it was going in. It looked destined for the back of the net. It was a lovely-looking strike, and goalkeeper diving to his right to try and cover his bottom corner. But yeah, as you say, just wide of the post in the end. I think George Cross really wouldn't mind a third goal just before the break, just to take any flicker of hope that South Melbourne are retaining out of this game.
Ball nodded forward, and there's red and white jerseys bearing down the South Melbourne defence, but it's well worked from Angus Angelatos to win it back. Doverston. Here is Confunda. Looking to play it through. Saris Vatros just couldn't get him behind, and there were calls for a handball. They were ignored. Mustafa looking to find Marzi. Confunda wins it back and wins the free kick. So closing in on half-time here. George Cross in the lead in this final game of round 13 here in Senol NPLM Men's Victoria. Officially tick over to the second half of the season after tonight. It's all set up for what's going to be such an enthralling end to this season. There's Lofts. Great skill there. Still going Lofts and plays it out wide. Marzi. Back into Lofts. First time ball back towards Marzi. Nodded away by Brown. Confunda. Sorry, Stavros couldn't win it. Still going down the left-hand side was the running Lofts, but it's gone out of bounds and out for a goal kick. And a round of applause there from the Clarendon corner. Really this game for the true believers tonight for South Melbourne. Coming out here on a chilly Monday night here at Lakeside Stadium, as we know at this stage of the year, particularly with the lake to our left, Oscar, it gets very, very nippy down at Lakeside Stadium. But great little contingent of South Melbourne fans that are here tonight to support the youngsters in action.
And a long way from the Doherty Cup final for Campbell Doverson as well. Football is an unforgiving beast.
Absolutely. Game on in that cup final at half-time, and really swung the game. Scored with his first touch, and then scored with basically the last kick of the game to win the game for South Melbourne. Really was a big turning point in there. What was looking to be such a tough year for them. Missed finals last season. Snisha Kahadzic doing such a good job to turn things around, and they win a free kick here. So maybe one last chance before the break for South Melbourne. They've done very well at just stifling George Cross's momentum in the last 25-odd minutes. Di Lorenzo standing over this one. Can they pull one back? Set things up beautifully going into the second half. Di Lorenzo whips it in. Ball's nodded away, but it will be coming straight back. Angus Angelados. Good ball into the box. Brown flew for it, but he's never really going to get on the end of that one in the end. Just went past him. Marzi going to clear it away, and Confunda did very well again to win the ball back.
He's doing it just about all at the moment, Ricardo Confunda. He's really excelled in this first 45, been the primary shining light, you'd say, for South Melbourne in this game. You wonder as we go into the second 45 whether fitness will be an issue for some of the younger players, of course, not used to playing at this intensity of senior football.
Here is Confunda again. But Tsitsipas did very well when he puts that one out for a throw-in. Continue to knock on the door, the South Melbourne youngsters. Funda now on long throw duties once again.
I mean, if South Melbourne were to nab a goal just here before the break, you'd be hard to argue that they don't deserve it. They've also set up a really exciting second 45 with the way that this first has gone.
Confunda goes short. Papadimitriou into the box. Tsitsipas does well to clear it away, and now Georgies can break. Opportunity now for them. Mustafa's bearing down the middle here, and there's a challenge there from Papadimitriou. And it's a yellow card. And the speed there in transition from George Cross causing South Melbourne some problems. And I guess that was a challenge that really had to be made there from Papadimitriou. A little bit closer, and maybe would have been a bit of a nervous moment there for the South Melbourne youngster. Yeah,
I think that's bang on, Nick. A smart foul to give away. Knew that he had a couple of covering defenders, so it was very unlikely to be a red card, and probably the right decision.
The fourth official has indicated there will be a minimum of 2 minutes at a time.
George Cross were really streaming forward with those couple of numbers, and Yaqub Mustafa looked real dangerous in the box.
So a free kick in a really dangerous position. Suddenly, when South Melbourne was starting to ask a few questions, they've now got a bit of defending to do. Luke Lofts has scored plenty of free kicks in his time, and he's fancying himself with this one. Lofts has a go! Oh, right into the top corner! Vintage Luke
Goal
Lofts.
for Caroline Springs, George Cross.
Whack a frame on it. That's a piece of art. Beautiful work there from the George Cross number 18. And the visitors will go into the break 3 to the good, Oscar.
I mean, how good was that? That could hardly have been more top bins. It's the kind of free kick that a specialist like Luke Lofts dreams of. And whilst we don't get the goal to bring South Melbourne back into this game, we get a really, really special finish. I think that one will be getting plenty of replays over the next week or so.
Wow. Well, South Melbourne, they were asking questions. They were putting this George Cross defence under quite a bit of pressure in those last few minutes of the half, but Luke Lofts just making sure that they perhaps slammed the door shut on any unlikely turnaround from the home side. And 3 to the good, George Cross. And that is what Luke Lofts can do. Just needs one moment. And in that position, when you're giving away a free kick, as much as Papadimitriou perhaps had to make that challenge, it just opened the door for the Englishman to blast one home. And half-time here at Lakeside Stadium.
The score is South Melbourne 0.
South Melbourne 0. Caroline Springs, George
Cross
Cross 3. And this youthful South Melbourne team been gallant in the first 45, but George Cross have flexed when it's mattered. They opened the scoring straight away, basically, through Morgan Filer. They doubled their lead through Leo Marzi, who just can't stop scoring at the moment. South Melbourne, they huffed and they puffed and they gave their best go. Ricardo Confunda hitting the post, giving South Melbourne just almost a slither of hope going into half-time. But Luke Lofts made sure to extend George Cross's lead on the brink of half-time with a perfectly hit free kick to put the visitors 3 goals to the good, Oscar. Georgies at the moment look like to be cruising to all 3 points here.
Well, it's the kind of game where you might have thought that it would be something that George Cross would dominate, but maybe they wouldn't quite get the goals, and you go in at half-time saying it's only 1 goal to the good or something like that, but George has been better than that. Really, it's been the opposite. 3-0 feels very harsh on South Melbourne considering the way that the game's been played. They've been more than competitive in this fixture. We've got a really entertaining first 45, which isn't really reflected in the 3-0 scoreline, but credit to Georgie's, credit to Luke Lofts. They've taken their chances when they presented themselves.
Well, Georgie's look set to get back on the winners list in the league. South Melbourne have a big hill to climb. This youthful South Melbourne team. 45 minutes remains in this one, and we'll see how this one finishes up here at Lakeside Stadium. We're back in around 15 minutes' time here for the second half. South Melbourne 0, Caroline Springs George Cross 3.
Substitution for South Melbourne FC, coming off number 33, Joseph Pizzano, and coming on number 6, Ramiro Lamadrid.
Welcome back to the second half here at Lakeside Stadium. All ready to go here for the final 45. South Melbourne 0, Caroline Springs, George Cross 3. This youthful South Melbourne team have a big mountain to climb, and they have made a half-time substitution. It is Ramiro Lamadrid on for his senior debut. The number 6 on for Joseph Pizzano for the final 45. So an opportunity for Lamadrid, another one of those young players that are into the squad today. As well, potential debuts we could see for Oliver Pert and Nicholas Stefanidakis. Nick Tabano and Oscar Rutherford here to take you through the final 45. And immediately, Oscar, George Cross picking up right where they left off in possession, looking to build on this 3-goal deficit. As the ball's knocked towards goal and saved there by Smirling.
Well, Nick, Ramiro Lamadrid, what a name. That's
That's
got me more excited for this second half. But yeah, no, a really entertaining first 45.
Well, Stavros was in behind and the flag is up, and a little moment there for Stavros to get in behind and test the Georgies' defence, but the assistant was onto that one.
I was just going to say that if you looked at the respective lineups before the game and then checked the halftime score, you'd be forgiven for thinking that was a first half bloodbath, but it was far from it. It was a really engaging first 45 minutes of football where South Melbourne were a little bit unlucky not to maybe get themselves on the score sheet. And George Cross, they were ruthlessly efficient when they got their chances, took advantage of a slow start from South to get those early couple of goals and then some Luke Lofts' brilliance to make it 3. But if we get a second half anything like that first, we'll be thoroughly entertained for the next 45 minutes in any case.
Absolutely. And South Melbourne find themselves back into this one, but Georgies, here they go again. Lofts already has 1 to his name, that stunning free kick on the 45 to round out that first half. Just a beautiful hit. One of the best goals you'll see this round. Perhaps a late contender for goal of the round. I mean, we saw some great goals already, particularly Mehdi Mehmedi on Friday night against Green Gully. Mustafa. Papadimitriou with the challenge, and now a chance for South to go back the other way. Strong challenge from Grieve. Campbell Dovison at times has been a bit of a lone figure up front. Just hasn't really been able to have that usual support. Usually he is the third or fourth banana in that stacked front line that South Melbourne have when he's coming off the bench and complementing the likes of your Achitas and your Mikolas and your Bananas. But today he's the main man up top. Mustafa looking to chase this one down. Papadimitriou getting back, and well work there from Thierry Papadimitriou.
You'd think you said third or fourth Bernarda, and I was like, I'm pretty sure there's only one of those. Got you there.
Could see the cogs were turning there for a second. I'm thinking, what did I say?
It's been a long day.
What did I say? Oh, it is a Monday. And it's Monday night football here. Of course, South Melbourne will actually be back here next Monday night to play Avondale. Remains to be seen what team will be rolling out that night, whether it will be the same names we see today or whether it will be the senior figures, depending on what happens on Wednesday when South Melbourne play Vanuatu United. Strong challenge from James, as it was Dib. Lofts going for goal himself, deflected, and a brilliant save from Smirling. And the Englishman took it upon himself to add a second for himself tonight. And that was a good stop there from the South Melbourne shot stopper.
Yeah, really good save. Quick adjustment to the deflection that just took the ball a little bit higher than he would have first anticipated, and maybe a little bit fortunate that it wasn't deflected a little bit more wildly to one side, for example, which would have made it really tough to stop. But yeah, strong start to the second 45 for Georgies. They're pinning back their hosts and I think just trying to take any little fighting spirit out of this game very quickly.
Dangerous corner into the box. It's nodded towards goal again from Filer, but that is a tremendous save from Smirling. Well, in his debut today, Oscar, he has been a bright spark for South Melbourne between the sticks. He's made some big stops when needed, and that one was no exception.
Yeah, that was better than the one just a couple of seconds before. The reactions, the reflex to get there in time when the header was at such close range. Really unbelievable save from the shot stopper between the sticks.
Morgan Filer already has one to his name. He'd love a second. He's been in some goal-scoring form as of late. Of course, the son of Craig. Ball to the near post, and it's Patiri who contested along with Mustafa. Mustafa comes up with it. Dib. Happy to go all the way back to Siciliano. Taking his time there, Christian Siciliano, to get things moving again. Ball nodded back inboard towards Mustafa. Marzi looking to get in behind Brown. Brown puts it out for a throw-in. Big confidence booster this will be for George Cross. At the moment, their goal difference going into today was -5. Currently down to -2. Get a couple more. Perhaps they have a chance to break even on the season. Dangerous ball into the box. Brown nodded away there by Jerry Angelatos. Just hacked clear from Campbell Dovison. Long raking ball in towards the area. Angelatos again. Nervous moment at the back there, but Di Lorenzo does well to play out. Angus Angelatos. Oh, it's a risky pass there from Jerry Angelatos, and Confunda was under the pump. But they've done well to work their way out of a predicament, and Le Madrid found his man there in Grieve, who wins the free kick.
Yeah, Nick, that's a discernible change from what we saw in the first 45. South Melbourne really building up in the intricate fashion that we're maybe more used to seeing their regular set of senior first team players doing. So that's clearly been an instruction from the coaching staff at halftime, wanting them to be more careful with the ball and invite a bit more of the Georgies' pressure, build up in a more conventional way.
Absolutely, and keep changing the angles, bring the switch if it's there. Try and get their midfielders involved in the corridor as well. Le Madrid. Looking for Dovison. James plays it short. Dib. That's a good ball towards Mustafa, but coming off his line was Smerling, who did well to put that one out of bounds. So just looking at the ladder, Oscar. George Cross with a win tonight. Their goal difference is a lot better than St Albans, so they'll go above them and into 8, and of course as well above Bentley Greens too. Be equal on points with Preston and 3 points behind Melbourne City. So knocking on the door of the top 6. Going into the second half of the year, and a dangerous moment there, and Smerling had to make a great stop there. Going back with the flight and taps it over for another corner.
Tell you what, it's been a rotten first 8 minutes for a goalkeeper. The deflections that he's having to deal with, he's doing an excellent job because there's a lot of misfortune in the way that the ball's coming towards him at the moment.
I know he's conceded 3 today, Oscar, but some of these saves will certainly be featuring on his highlight reel. He has been brilliant this evening. Bit of a nervous start, but since then he's been very, very good as Lofts floats it in, and Smerling and Confunda went up for it, and a bit of confusion inside the box means another corner, this time from the opposite side.
I was just talking about the ladder before, Nick, and worth mentioning as well that with the win tonight, they do indeed go on to get it, George. He's just 4 points behind South Melbourne, which is pretty extraordinary considering how rough the last couple of months have been for Caroline Springs. Probably tells you a little bit about how even the competition is this year.
Ball whipped in. Brown got ahead to it. It's going to come back out to Luke Lofts. Oh, slip there from James at an unfortunate moment, but Dib was there to mop up. And I mean, Oscar, when you look at their next few games in the league as well, Bentley away. They play the winless Green Gully in the Maltese Derby after that at home. Dandy Thunder away, who have their own troubles at the moment. Of course, Adam Pittick just departing the club. And Dandy City at home. So they play a lot of those sides below them on the ladder. So a real chance for them to springboard off the back of this and start to get some points on the board. Of course, we spoke about how strong they started the season, getting points against those teams. And now they have a real opportunity in the reverse fixtures to do it all again and really start to put the pressure on the top six.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways this game has come at a really good time for them, just to stop a bit of the rot and give themselves some good feeling heading into that winnable run of fixtures.
Dovison into the box, and Zoutsidis just getting in the way, and Siciliano was able to make the stop, and George Sarastavros was making the run at the back stick, and well, there's been a few moments tonight for South Melbourne where they've made this George's defence sweat a little bit, and that was another one. I think you're bang on, Oscar. I think this is the exact sort of game they needed, just to get their confidence up, see the ball hit the back of the net, perhaps keep a clean sheet as well, and really get back to, particularly from a defensive standpoint, what made them so hard to beat in the early going of this season. Especially with that huge game against Preston next week in the Cup. If they could also get a win in that too and sandwich these important league games with progressing to the national stage of the Australia Cup, the momentum that they'd be able to take off the back of that, particularly winning on the road as well at Geneseo Stadium if they're able to do it. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean, that is a bit of the caveat to their upcoming run. 4 of the 5 next games, including tonight, away from home for Georges. But to be fair, they've been pretty good without playing at home. So I don't think that'll be a huge barrier for them.
Long throw opportunity as Confunda goes into the box, but a bit quieter in this second half, and Mustafa with a lovely touch past Le Madrid. And looking to go upon himself here, Yaqub Mustafa, and Le Madrid is basically hanging off Mustafa, and he's still going. Cross into the area, and Smerling was there to collect. That was brilliant strength from Yaqub Mustafa. We haven't seen too much of him this season, but getting his chance tonight. Former South Melbourne player, has spent time at Dandy City last year in their grand final run, and Bentley Green scored the winner in the Doherty Cup final at this venue back in 2022, playing for Bentley, and so happy memories for him here. A very short stint at South Melbourne in 2023. Ball into the box towards Sarastavros, and rounds it out for a goal kick.
I think Yaqub Mustafa, one of those players that Eric Vasiliadis will want to see a little bit more heavy lifting from in the goal-scoring charts in the second half of the season. We know that that's not all that he provides for this George Cross attacking line, but just to relieve some of the burden from the likes of Leo Marzi and Luke Lofts, who've been doing a lot of the scoring. In fact, I think, well, now, along with Morgan Filer, the only multiple goal scorers in the league for George Cross this season. So that'll be something he'll want to add to his game in the second half of the campaign.
With the window opening in a matter of weeks, it'll be very fascinating to see how they attack the second half of the year in that window too. You'd think that, given their defensive record for the most part this season, that attack might be the number one priority, Oscar. Maybe finding another number 9 that can bang in the goals. Josh Whiteley is a player who we haven't seen replicate the same feats that we saw in VPL 1 last year. He's on the bench tonight, so you expect we would see him at some point this evening, but maybe looking to get another striker and in the window could be something that could help them really go to that next level in the final rounds of the campaign. Of course, though, as we know in this competition, number 9s don't really grow on trees, which is the hard thing, so I'm sure they've got to work in the scouting department. Le Madrid under all sorts of pressure, hemmed into the corner. He's done well there, Le Madrid, and a little bit of a tangle there with Lofts. The only substitution of this game has been Ramiro Le Madrid coming on for Joseph Pisano. Expect at some point that Eric Vasiliadis and Goran Stajic, who is coaching today for South Melbourne, will be looking to make some changes and freshen things up in the final 45. Throw-ins cleared away. Zoutsidis is there to mop up. James breaking ball out towards the right-hand side. Le Madrid gets across and clears it away. Just looking at the bench for George Cross, as mentioned, Josh Whiteley, Otman Benadou, Maker, Callum Pickford, Agua Manuel as well back on the bench tonight. Been in and out of the team this season, but played in the Cup in midweek. And Emmanuel Prifty, the backup goalkeeper. South Melbourne still have Lee Papastadiadis, who is the son of Bill, who is, of course, one of the head honchos here at South Melbourne, and Thomas Killick, Nicholas Stefanidikis and Oliver Pert, along with Jacob Majovic, who is the backup goalkeeper, who is number 6, I guess, technically in the pecking order, Oscar. I tell you what, if you're a goalkeeper at South Melbourne around the senior setup, you expect that your number will be called at some point. But with that OFC Pro League coming to an end, perhaps, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen now.
Well, I mean, if your fifth choice goalkeeper is making some of the saves that we've seen tonight, it suggests that it's a pretty competitive...
Confunda looks to play it through, and Tsitsipas clears it away. Tell you what, Oscar, Confunda, he's going to be a player that I think, as this year goes on, if South Melbourne need to look towards more of these kids and they get an opportunity, I think he'll be a player to maybe keep an eye on. I think if you're Sinisha Kohadzic, I dare say he's watching this in Auckland at the moment. So good day to you, Sinisha, and all the South Melbourne players. He'd be a player, certainly, that I think you'd be really, really impressed with tonight. There's been a few that have really stood out.
I think for sure, and you alluded to it in the first half, that one of the maybe unintended benefits of the way South Melbourne are having to manage their playing time this season is getting some senior game time into all of these players who will no doubt benefit from having the experience, even if the state of the game isn't a particularly favourable one or an easy one in which to play. And that just does give them a few more strings to their bow when you head in towards the back end of the season and, of course, future seasons as well.
Mustanagic into the box, and it's a delightful ball in, and it's Morgan Filer ghosting in at the back stick who puts it over the bar. And we will see George Cross now head to their bench. It's going to be Aguer Manuel coming on here. And Aidan Mustanagic's evening comes to an end. And another change as well with Yagu Mustafa replaced by Joshua Whiteley.
Coming off number 17, Aidan Mustanagic, and coming on number 20, Aguer Manuel. Coming off for George Cross,
like we're actually going to see a third change as well. Maker
Joshua Whitley.
One of their goal scorers
and coming
in
off
Morgan
for Caroline Springs, George Cross. Number 5, Morgan Filer. And coming on, number 25, Maker.
So perhaps just an eye to the next few weeks and the next few days, really. A game against Bentley coming up in a matter of days, and then Preston in the Cup. So a chance to put a few players... give a few players a little bit of a rest and perhaps just make sure that they're all ready to go for this condensed fixture that is coming up for George Cross.
Yeah, not a huge surprise to see Eric Vasiliadis turning to his bench and making the use of it, because he's going to need more than just the first 11 players over the next month or so, in particular with those cup commitments to come as well. And it is one of the real perks of George Cross's squad this season, that they do have the depth of NPL pedigreed players as well. There's a number of players on the bench tonight and who've just come on who we've seen at this level a reasonable amount as well, which will put George Cross in a reasonable position, just competing on the fronts that they are.
Well, the players coming on, Maker, a very, very experienced defender, very handy player to be calling upon for the final half an hour. And Aguer Manuel, who spent last season at Dandy Thunder, coming on for the final few minutes. Only 2 appearances in the league this year. And Josh Whiteley, who we did speak about a little bit earlier, is an all-action forward who was brilliant in VPL 1 last season. Free kick there for George Cross. He scored 14 goals in the league last year. Fellow Englishman, him and Luke Lofts combining for 32 goals last season. So we're still yet to see Whiteley really get going in the top tier, but we've seen Luke Lofts certainly start to find the back of the net in the first half of the campaign. And Lofts again on free kick duty here as they look to build on this deficit. See there, Christian Siciliano having a bit of a knee in the back half of the field there as he watches this play on. Ball into the areas of Cetus. Ball's not cleared, out to Dib. And it's cleared away by Confunda. And of course, Siciliano into action, gets out of his lunge, and off he goes again. It's been a quite second half for Christian Siciliano. Was called into action a lot more in that first half. A little bit more to worry about, but George Cross have been in full control in this second half as Confunda's ball just past Campbell Dobson. It was really, as you mentioned, Oscar, earlier in that first half, that perhaps the fitness levels would start to show in this second half for South Melbourne.
Yeah, it's a shame, but an understandable one. I think not just the fitness, but also the timing of that Luke Lofts goal was perfect from a George Cross perspective, just because, the 2-goal lead, South Melbourne still would have had a glimmer of hope or belief that they could maybe, grab 1 goal and then the pressure's on and that whole cliche. But the 3rd goal really, you felt, put this game well and truly out of reach of South Melbourne, and that's been reflected, I think, a bit in how the game's played out in the second 45.
Spiteri, another former Bulleen player in action today, Justin Spiteri. Spent a season at the Venator Club last year. Plenty of experience in the top flight with Georgie's rivals in Green Gully. Of course, it was Bulleen who did knock South Melbourne out of the Doherty Cup only a matter of weeks ago.
I was about to credit you for only having, I think, 2 Bulleen mentions in the game up to this point, but you've already racked up 3 or 4 now, Nick. You're letting loose.
Bit of cheap handballs off the back. Well played there from Sarastavros. Said to win it back and played out wide. Grieve. Some moments in the first half, but was unable to beat his man, Nick Dibb. Very well played to get across. Maker under pressure from Doverson. Out there for a throw-in. Maker, of course, the brother of Thon Maker, formerly played for the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA, as well related to Port Adelaide defender Alir. Succeedus, step it up, has a go from range, and it was dipping. And well, why not? He wants to get on the party as well. Already one centre-back scored, and he wants to make sure that he can get his name on the score sheet this evening.
I think the only name you left out of that list was the distant relative, the entrepreneur Meet Your, but other than that, you've ticked off all of the maker connections.
Took me a second. Anyways. Nick Dibb. Bit of ingenuity there to get things moving. Tyler James. Back to Spiteri. Bounce it out for a throw-in. 25 minutes or so remaining in this one. Goals from Morgan Filer, Leo Marzi and Luke Lofts, the difference in this one. All attention now for South Melbourne, and their support will be Wednesday afternoon against the red-hot Vanuatu. Big winners yesterday against Bulla, coming from behind. It was a crazy game, Oscar, in fact. I don't know if you caught it, but Bulla were up 1-0 going into second half stoppage time. Vanuatu got a red card in second half stoppage time. But lo and behold, they got an equaliser as well after the red card in the 10th minute of stoppage time to send it to extra time, and then scored the winner in the 120th minute to progress. So mind you, as the OFC Pro League works, they were the winner of the Challengers group, so they finished in the bottom 4. They beat 4th place Bulla, and now they take on a side in South Melbourne who finished top of the Pops in the Leaders group. So they're going in red hot to take on South Melbourne tomorrow. Really looking forward to that one. Few familiar names in that Vanuatu team. Matt Acton between the sticks, and Bill Keltack, the brother of Brian. Smellin clears it away. You catch all that action on FIFA Plus, live and free. Midday, so make sure you're timing your lunch breaks. You've got it on the second screen, whether it's on your laptop or on your phone. Whatever it might be to get you through the workday. Keep an eye on that one. It's certainly going to be a humdinger of a contest as Utsidis sends it long. Angelados couldn't chase it down. And that's the other Angelados, Jerry. Yeah, for a throw-in. The smoke billowing over there from on our right-hand side there, Oscar, just over the old vintage grandstand here at Lakeside Stadium. Savlakis, of course, as always, here at this famous venue, cooking up a storm. Saw George Koo before the game. He was taken in, saying how it was, good vibes around the venue, and so to try out the matcha as well for the vending machine that's there. They've got the vending machine where you can get all sorts of different drinks made for you. Actually buy the vending machine. I actually tried out the protein shake. So when you get on down to Lakeside Stadium, you try all sorts of different things, whether it's a Suv or a matcha or a Freddo or whatever it might be. Great choice of options.
Are you allowed to advertise other kinds of drinks? I thought that was excluded in your contract.
Whiteley in behind. Chance now for George Cross. Whiteley again. And Smerling makes the save. Don't know what you're talking about. Dibb wins it back.
No, but look, Nick, I mean, you mentioned in the first half, the rest of this month for South Melbourne, we'll see how they go in the OFC Pro League and how they manage their players, but the last couple of games of Bay against Avondale and Hume City, really tantalising prospects, and we'll see if South are back to their best for those games.
Dovison. Confunda. Strong challenge there on the edge of the box. Jerry Angelados. Getting to the byline. And wins a free kick.
I was just going to make the point that if you look after that, Nick, it's a fairly favourable run of fixtures for South Melbourne to really start collating the points and picking them up now that they can focus on their league commitments more fully. The run of games, Altona at home, away at Bentley, home to Gully, and then the two Dandy teams to come at the start of July.
All leading into that game there in the middle of July. Oh boy, oh boy.
19th of July against Preston.
So as you mentioned, Oscar, a really good chance for South Melbourne to get some points on the board after this slate of games. Di Lorenzo into the box. It's cleared away. Angelados. Di Lorenzo, heavy touch, and Schway with the assistant point. It's gone in the favour of George Cross.
It does just mean that if results go as expected for South, we'll see how they fare in the next couple against Avondale and Hume, but then a run of those, let's say 5 games where you'd expect them to win at least 3 or 4 of them. If that all goes to plan, then you'd imagine that we'd find them right up in the top 2 or 3 positions on the NPL ladder by mid-July. It's really just as if they've had a full team for the whole season. It'd be a very acceptable position to find themselves in.
Absolutely, and of course that they get the opportunity to have another crack at the likes of Oakley and Heidelberg as well, with a full-strength team going on the road to play Oakley at Jack Edwards Reserve, but welcome Heidelberg here. But when they've had a full-strength team in their last 2 meetings, in the Doherty Cup and in the Australian Championship, sorry, they did get the win in both of those fixtures, so they've had the wood over them when they've had a full array of players available. Lofts looking to play it through. Jerry Angelados getting back. Oh, nervous moment there for Smerling. And the door opens for Marzi. And he adds a 4th for George Cross. He continues his red-hot
Goal
form.
for Caroline Springs, George Cross.
And that's a little bit of extra icing on the cake for Caroline Springs, George Cross, who will return to the winners list in the league. The Georgies chant from the travelling supporters rings out on the opposite side of the stadium, and they are set to record their first win against South Melbourne in almost 2 decades.
Well, it's hard to argue they don't deserve it. They've been in really complete control of this second 45, George Cross, and yeah, just that little mix-up at the back for South Melbourne, taken full advantage of by Leo Marzi. He continues to add to his goal tallies, really putting his name in the hat.
Double
for one of the
substitution
top scorers
for South
in the
Melbourne
NPL this
FC,
competition
coming
this
off
season,
number
rather.
28, Tieli Papadimitriou, and coming on number 40, Oliver Pert.
So there you go. Change there for South Melbourne. Oliver Pertz on for his
coming
debut.
off
Coming
for
on for
South Melbourne FC,
Thierry
Number
Papadimitriou.
38, Noah Grieve.
And
coming
Noah
on,
Grieve,
number
we replaced
34,
here by Thomas
Killick.
Killick, number 34 for South Melbourne. So a double change here. But a debut for Ollie Pert. He'll get his chance today for South Melbourne. Thomas Killick, we've already seen a handful of times this season. May see a debut last year, I believe, as well, towards the tail end of that campaign. So 4-0 to George Cross. We enter the final few minutes of this one. It's a win that they just quite simply just had to have. Just notch this one up, get back on the winners list. Doesn't matter who they're coming up against. In South Melbourne, well, their focus will be just to try and limit a little bit of the damage here and course, focus on what comes next, because the seniors in action, as we've spoken about on Wednesday and perhaps maybe Sunday, and then in the league back in action on Monday, which it could be these kids again, depending on what happens this week. As Confunda into the box, Siciliano with the grab, and he's really been the bright spark for South Melbourne, Ricardo Confunda. His first start for the club. George Cross, one of the 4 other Victorian teams that have the well, there'll be 4 other teams, to join South Melbourne in the national stage of the Australia Cup, and George is hoped to be one of those teams. Draw was done last week for round 7 of the competition, where some teams will have the chance to go directly into the national stages. George Cross playing Preston away. Real opportunity for these Victorian clubs, as we have seen, particularly last year, the excitement that they have provided in this competition. We saw Heidelberg at this venue playing the Australia Cup final back in October against the A-League Men Premiers Newcastle Jets.
I'm curious for your thoughts, Nick, on as we reach the halfway point of the season for George Cross, and they find themselves just 3 points outside the 6. You as someone who probably saw more of them than most in VPL 1 last season, whether how they've fared so far in the top flight is what you were expecting, really, whether this is the adjustment that you were imagining that you'd see from them.
I predicted them, similarly to what we saw in VPL 1, is they were going to be the chaos team, because their performances in VPL 1 were very much to that level. They scored a lot, but they conceded a lot too. But this year they've actually become a lot stronger defensively and haven't been winning games by as much. Today is a little bit of an outlier, of course, of who they've come
Double
against.
substitution for
We'll come back to that in a
Caroline
sec, because Georges are about to make a double
number
change.
18, Luke Lofts, and coming on, number 12, Callum Pickford.
So Callum Pickford on for Luke Lofts, who scored a stunning free kick to put Georges up by 3.
Coming off for
And
Caroline
Otman Benedou
George Cross,
is
number
also
10,
going to be
Leo
coming on
Mazzi,
here
and coming
for
on, number 27,
the other goal scorer, Leo
Osman
Mazzi,
Ben-Hadou.
who has a brace today. Another really, really impressive performance from Leo Mazzi, who is building on all that immense promise. Former Celtic junior, a player that we have seen at a few different clubs across Victoria, but has really gone to the next level here at George Cross. So, but just to go back to that, Oscar, I mean, I had this feeling that they would be a team that would be in and around that mid-table, perhaps, if they could just get those results against the teams they needed to beat, which they did in the first half of the year, those teams around them, and gain points, that they'd be able to avoid really being dragged into a relegation scrap. And so far, they've done a brilliant job at doing that. I think if you're to give it a grade, it's certainly more than just a pass. I think it's looking to probably put it even closer towards a B for how well they've done, and to be right in the mix for finals football and see what they're able to do in the second half of the year. I think they'd be very, very pleased. And I think just being able to consolidate this year and keep themselves in the top flight would be certainly the aim. They want to add a 5th here. Ball into the area. Whiteley climbs back in board towards Manuel. And it's cleared away. South Melbourne looking to go back the other way. Here's Vasiliadis. There's a player down here for South Melbourne in Saristavros, and I'll put the ball out so Saristavros can receive some treatment. But Oscar, I mean, we're heading into the final 10 minutes here. Tell you what, I'm very excited to see how these next few weeks unfold, you know, for South, and I guess what lies ahead when we do see them week in, week out being able to select from their full strength squad and have their full complement of players available, and whether they'll be buoyed by another trophy that could be coming home from them. And I think just in all, you know, there's been a lot of conversation around South Melbourne's participation in the OFC Pro League, but I think it's such an exciting opportunity for them. And if they're able to go on and win it, what a great representation it is for Victorian football, for them to go and represent not only Victoria, but technically representing Australia in the OFC Pro League, and go and get the job done and bring it back across the Tasman. It would be an amazing achievement from them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, what we've lost because of it is some of the games for South Melbourne in the NPL this season not being what we would normally get from them in terms of a full-strength lineup, and just in the broader context of Sinisa Kahadzic's tenure. Of course, last season coming in think it was around the start of May. So we didn't get a full season of his team then, and we just saw them build and build and build all the way to that Doherty Cup win, but without making finals. And then this season, I mean, they're in a much better position to make finals than they were at this time last year. But again, we've kind of been denied seeing maybe the full powers of what a Senisha Kahadzic South Melbourne team can look like, at least not until the second half of the campaign. But yeah, as you say, I mean, it's certainly been a really interesting and different way for South to go about this, and it's provided new opportunities, new narratives, and new challenges for this set of players and for this club as a whole.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that it's just the byproduct of what is one of the most unique scenarios in football, that they're battling in two different competitions. The geography of the competitions means that, and the way that they are, the hub format means that, you know, this is what they've had to do to compete domestically, and if they've wanted to compete in the OFC Pro League. And I mean, the prize money on offer, the opportunity to play in front of a massive audience as well, a worldwide audience, it's huge for them. So as well, looking to build on that moniker of being the most successful Oceanian team, the Oceanian team of the century. As they're going to make another change here.
Double substitution
Double
for
change
South
for
Melbourne
South
FC,
Melbourne.
coming off number 39.
Coming off number 39, Jerry Angelanos. Coming on number 44, Lee Papastagiadis. Coming on here for South Melbourne.
Coming off for South Melbourne FC.
And also coming on,
George Saristabros. And coming on number 14, Nicholas Stefanidakis.
Well, Nicholas Stefanidakis comes on for his debut. And coming off is number 31, George Saristabros. So another exciting opportunity for young Stefanidakis, another senior debutant for South Melbourne. And Lee Papastagiadis, who comes on here for the final few minutes as well. As we head into the final few minutes, the Georgies chant rings out. I mean, they're up and about. Doesn't matter what opposition it is. They'll always take a win against South Melbourne. It's been a long time between drinks for them to celebrate a win against a team that they have played before tonight 76 times. It's one of the oldest matchups and one of the, I guess, well, you know, matchups we've seen the most in Victorian football.
And I think I see the golden jacket just near the Clarendon corner over there as well, Nick. So I think that's a surefire sign that the Georgies fans are feeling that they've got this one.
Tell you what, if Leo Marzis had scored a third tonight, they might give him a gold number 10 to wear next week. Of course, with games coming in quick succession, the importance of managing bodies is oh so important, and curious to see how they do balance those commitments. And a player like Callum Pickford here is looking to make something happen here for George Cross. James in a shooting position, plays it back out, and the long-range attempt goes well over the bar. But it's about the load management and making sure they've got their players available. Players like Leo Marzi, making sure that he's ready for these big games coming up when they do play the likes of Bentley Greens and Preston Lions, when they're going to need their full array of best players available.
It was a bit of a weird one coming into tonight, wasn't it? Because the two teams who hadn't been picking up the wins in the way that they would have liked to, of course. So there was a bit of a downward mood in some ways around both clubs, and yet both were still coming off the end of the first half of the season with which they would have been quite happy, all things considered. So it's been a strange night with a lot of factors pulling in different directions. Of course, George Cross will come away with the 3 points, and 3 points that will take them really onto the cusp of the top six, which reflects a really positive season. But, you know, South Melbourne walk out of tonight not having really expected to get much, if anything, from this game, and yet brimming with optimism heading into the second half of the campaign.
Oh, nervous moment there from Smirling. Papastagiadis in board. Angus Angelados. And wins the free kick there. Very strong challenge in the middle of the park. So we're into the final few minutes here. Dib. Vasiliadis. Back to Zoutzidis. Benadou unable to get that one out from underneath him, and now for a throw-in in the end. Takes a deflection on the way through.
Have you formed a sense, Nick, over the first half of the season of where a full-strength South Melbourne sits relative to the rest of the NPL competition? Are they the best team in it, or is where their position is now more reflective of where you think their true level is?
No, I think they're a lot higher. I think they're right up there as a true contender this season. It's going to be such a fascinating end to this year to see when they do play Heidelberg and Oakley with full strength, when they play Hume City with full strength as well. We saw what they did against Avondale. We saw what they did against Preston. You know, against Preston, they had a starting 11 available that day, and they were able to come away with a